London, October 12, 2015, 3:47 p.m. Marcus Sterling's vinyl vault sat tucked away on a quiet street in Camden, the kind of place tourists would walk past without noticing. But collectors knew. For 35 years, Marcus had been buying and selling rare records, rock memorabilia, and concert posters that museums would kill for. That afternoon, Marcus sat behind his counter, cataloging a signed Beatles album when the door chime rang. The man who walked in looked ordinary. Too ordinary for Marcus's shop. He wore a plain gray overcoat, black scarf wrapped high around his neck, and a fedora pulled low over his eyes. His walk was slow, careful, the gait of someone older, maybe unwell. Marcus noticed the leather gloves, the slightly stooped posture. Probably just browsing, Marcus thought. Won't buy anything. With 40 years of experience, Marcus Sterling could categorize customers within seconds. Serious collectors with money, casual fans wasting time, or tourists looking for cheap souvenirs. This man fell into the second category. The man moved slowly through the shop, examining shelves with unusual focus. His gloved fingers traced the spines of record sleeves. He muttered something to himself, too quiet for Marcus to hear. Marcus watched him with mild irritation. The shop wasn't busy, but he didn't like time wasters, and this man's careful, deliberate movements suggested someone who had plenty of time and no money. "Can I help you find something?" Marcus called out, his tone polite but dismissive. The man turned. His voice was soft, slightly raspy. "Just looking. Got any Bowie? Early stuff?" Marcus raised his eyebrows. Of course he had Bowie. He had everything Bowie. First pressings, rare Japanese editions, promotional copies that never went to retail. But those weren't for browsers. "We do have some Bowie," Marcus said carefully, walking over. "But I should mention, our collection is quite exclusive. The prices reflect that." Translation: "These are expensive. Probably beyond your budget." The man nodded slowly, as if he hadn't quite understood the implication, or didn't care. Marcus guided him to a cheaper section, records priced at £100 to £200, respectable pieces but nothing extraordinary. "There are some nice items here," Marcus said, gesturing to albums that were, frankly, the most ordinary Bowie records in the shop. The man leaned closer, adjusted his glasses beneath the fedora, and scanned the titles. Then he looked up. "You have The Man Who Sold the World. Original RCA pressing, 1970, the one with the dress cover." Marcus nearly laughed. The 1970 UK first pressing of The Man Who Sold the World, the controversial cover with Bowie in a dress, was worth £12,000. What was this man thinking? "We do," Marcus said, a hint of condescension creeping into his voice. "But that particular record is one of the most valuable pieces in our collection, £12,000. He expected shock, an apology, a quick exit. Instead, the man just nodded. £12,000, right. Can I see it?" Marcus paused. This couldn't be serious, but he was a businessman. "Of course. Anne." Marcus walked to the locked cabinet behind the register and retrieved the album, still sealed in archival protective sleeve. As he placed it on the counter, he studied the stranger more carefully. The man's hands trembled slightly, Parkinson's maybe, or just age. His face was mostly hidden by the scarf and hat, but Marcus could see pale skin and tired eyes. And then Marcus noticed something on the man's left hand, visible when he removed one glove to touch the record. A small scar, lightning bolt-shaped, old, faded but unmistakable. Marcus registered this detail but couldn't make sense of it. Probably some old injury, an accident from years ago. The man looked at the album cover with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read. Almost nostalgic. Sad, even. His fingers touched the sleeve gently. "Please be careful," Marcus said sharply. "That's an extremely valuable piece." The man smiled slightly. "Don't worry. I know how to handle records." Just then, the man's attention shifted to the wall behind Marcus. Hanging in a frame was an original 1973 concert poster, David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust Farewell Tour, Hammersmith Odeon. And in the corner, in faded silver marker, was a signature. David Bowie. The man stared at the poster for a long moment. His expression changed. Something flickered across his face that Marcus couldn't identify. Memory? Pain? Both? That poster, the man said quietly. How much? Marcus smiled. Now they were getting somewhere. Maybe this man could actually spend money. That's a very special piece, Marcus said, stepping out from behind the counter. Original 1973 print from the final Ziggy Stardust show. And most importantly, it has Bowie's authentic signature. Certified. He paused for effect. £18,000, and I don't negotiate. The man nodded slowly. £18,000 for his signature. He said it strangely. His signature, not the signature, as if he knew the person who'd signed it. Marcus misread this entirely. Look, sir, he said, now trying to politely guide the stranger toward the door. This shop caters to serious collectors. Perhaps you'd find more affordable pieces elsewhere. There are tourist shops on Oxford Street that sell reproductions. If it's just for decoration. Reproductions? The man's voice carried a hint of amusement. No, mate, I'm looking for originals. Marcus was growing impatient. This man was wasting valuable time. Then I'm sorry, but these prices may not be suitable for you. Just then, the door chimed again. A woman in her 70s entered. Mrs. Caldwell, one of Marcus's regular customers, former music journalist, widow of a BBC producer. She browsed monthly, rarely bought anything. Marcus, darling, she called out, then noticed the stranger at the counter. Her eyes widened. She looked at the man more carefully. The posture, the careful movements, the distinctive cheekbones visible beneath the scarf. Her mouth opened slightly. But something made her stay quiet. She'd seen how Marcus was treating this man, and a voice inside told her to watch this unfold. Marcus, she said innocently, aren't you going to help this gentleman properly? Perhaps if he introduced himself. The man turned and looked at her. Recognition passed between them. She knew who he was, and he knew that she knew. No need for introductions, the man said, that raspy voice more pronounced now. I'm just looking for old records. Marcus rolled his eyes. Yes, looking at £18,000 posters. Look, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but you're wasting everyone's time here. The door opens again. At that moment, the door chimed once more. A young man in an expensive suit walked in. Designer glasses, Rolex watch, confident stride. This was Marcus's kind of customer. The man entered, glanced at the counter and froze. He blinked, stared, then spoke in a whisper. Excuse me, but aren't you David Bowie? Silence. The color drained from Marcus Sterling's face. Doubt, confusion, recognition, horror. It hit him all at once, like photographs developing in sequence. The man removed his scarf slowly, revealing the unmistakable face, the mismatched eyes, one pupil permanently dilated from that teenage fight, the angular cheekbones, the slight gap in his front teeth. Yeah, David Bowie said quietly. That's me. The young businessman approached excitedly. I can't believe this. I grew up on Ziggy Stardust. Meeting you is... Can we take a photo? Bowie smiled, that familiar, slightly tired but genuine smile. Of course. While they took the selfie, Marcus stood frozen behind the counter. His mind replayed the last 20 minutes, the plain coat, the careful walk, the trembling hands, the lightning bolt scar on his hand, not from an accident, but the Aladdin Sane lightning bolt, tattooed decades ago. Everything made sense now. And he, Marcus Sterling, with 40 years of experience, had failed to recognize one of music history's most iconic figures, had tried to show him the door. Mrs. Caldwell was smiling quietly, enjoying the moment. She'd always thought Marcus was too arrogant. This lesson would do him good. Marcus finally found his voice. Mr. Bowie, he stammered, I'm so sorry I didn't recognize you. My behavior was... It's unforgivable. Bowie looked genuinely confused. Sorry? What are you sorry for? Marcus swallowed hard. I was condescending. I treated you like you couldn't afford anything. It was shameful. Bowie thought for a moment, then gave a small laugh. Marcus, right? Look, I've seen every kind of treatment in my life. When people recognize me, they treat me like royalty. When they don't, I'm just another browser they want gone. It's all the same. He paused. I'm still David Jones from Brixton. What I'm wearing shouldn't change how people treat me. But it does. And that's the problem. Marcus didn't know what to say. This man, the man he'd just dismissed, was teaching him a lesson. And the worst part, he was right. For 40 years, Marcus had been judging people by appearance, assuming outer presentation reflected inner worth. And now, one of rock's biggest legends stood before him in a plain coat, giving him the lesson of his life. The story behind the poster. Bowie turned back to the poster on the wall. That signature, he said quietly. I signed that poster in 1973, July 3rd, Hammersmith Odeon, the last Ziggy show. He paused, lost in memory. There was a kid backstage afterward, 14, maybe 15, crying because Ziggy was dead. I told him, Ziggy's not dead, he's just transformed. Signed this poster for him, told him to keep it safe. Bowie smiled sadly. Kid probably thought I was insane. Now here it is, 18,000 pounds. Marcus listened, speechless. That moment was real to me, Bowie continued. It wasn't about fame. It was about a kid who loved music and a performer trying to explain why he had to change. I want to buy this poster, not because of the price, because it reminds me of that kid, of who I was, of why any of this mattered. Mrs. Caldwell quietly wiped her eyes. Marcus's voice broke. Mr. Bowie, I want to give you this poster, as a gift. The lesson you taught me today is worth far more than 18,000 pounds. Bowie shook his head firmly. No, Marcus, you've got a shop to run, a life to live. I don't want to hurt your business, just next time someone walks in, look at their eyes, not their clothes. The eyes tell you everything. The purchase. Bowie pulled out his wallet and handed Marcus a credit card. While Marcus processed the transaction with trembling hands, Bowie selected a few more pieces. A rare hunky-dory first pressing, an original Heroes German edition, a signed Lou Reed album. The total, over 45,000 pounds. As Marcus carefully wrapped each piece, Bowie turned to Mrs. Caldwell. You recognized me from the beginning, didn't you? The old woman smiled. I did. I interviewed you in 1983 for NME. You told me about Berlin and Eno, and how loneliness creates better art than happiness. Bowie laughed. Did I say that? Sounds pretentious. It was, but it was also true. Bowie took his packages and extended his hand to Marcus. Marcus, I'm glad I met you, really. This shop is wonderful, a real treasure. Just remember, sometimes treasures come in unexpected packaging. Marcus shook his hand, eyes wet. I understand now, Mr. Bowie. I really do. The young businessman held the door open. Can I help you carry those, Mr. Bowie? Bowie smiled. Thanks, but I'll manage. In Brixton, you learn to carry your own weight. Before stepping out, he turned one last time. See you around, Marcus. Maybe I'll drop by again. Will you recognize me then? Marcus smiled through tears. I'll never forget you, Mr. Bowie. 3 months later. A new sign hung on the door of Marcus Sterling's vinyl vault. Equal respect for every customer since 1980. Marcus had put it up a week after Bowie's visit, and he meant it. Business changed. Sales actually increased. People discovered that Marcus's shop was different now, that you could browse without judgment. Every evening when he closed up, Marcus looked at the empty frame on the wall where the Ziggy poster used to hang. He'd left the frame there, empty, as a reminder. Because that empty frame taught him something every day. The most valuable lessons come from unexpected teachers. And sometimes, the man in the plain coat carries the greatest treasure of all: the ability to change your life with a single conversation. On January 10th, 2016, 3 months after his visit to the shop, David Bowie died. When Marcus heard the news, he closed the shop for the day and sat alone in the silence, looking at that empty frame. He thought about the tired man in the gray coat, the trembling hands, the quiet wisdom. And he realized Bowie had been dying that day, probably in pain, probably exhausted, and still he'd taken the time to teach a stranger a lesson about dignity. Marcus never sold that empty frame. It stayed on the wall, a reminder that the greatest artists don't just create music. They create moments that change people, even strangers in record shops who think they know everything.